beginning a new day. The dawn comes, the dark of the night disperses, we gather together. Paying our respects to the Triple Gem, to Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Both embodied in the external qualities of Gautama Buddha, our great teacher, guide, the Dhamma teaching, that wisdom left in forms and traditions we've inherited over these centuries. Sangha, those disciples of the Buddha who have awakened to the path and realized the goal, that to which the path is leading. When we chant these verses, these are the objects that we're referring to. These are what the verses form themselves around, and yet, along with these external aspects of Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, what makes them a genuine refuge is the internal qualities, the attributes of our own being, our own nature, that they are also referring to. Buddha means awake, the one who knows. Taking refuge in Buddha is taking refuge in that which is wise and awake, choosing to be awake rather than snoozing. Choosing to be wise, placing the quality of mindfulness, heedfulness at the center, setting the intention to be guided by that quality rather than by distraction or self-centeredness. Dhamma is the way things are. The very quality of nature itself. So taking refuge in Dhamma is laying aside the opinions of how things should be, or could be, ought to be, our habitual perceptions. The truth of the natural order, the way life actually works. Sangha is that quality of virtue or unselfishness, the capacity that we have to lay aside our own self-concerns, to unite harmoniously with others. The quality of virtue, unselfishness, humility. All these dimensions are aspects of Sangha as an internal quality. So as we gather together in the morning, bowing, chanting, reciting these verses. It's a beautiful and symbolic, formal way of setting wisdom, truth, unselfishness at the center as our aspiration, to set the intention to be guided by these qualities, rather than by self-concern, distraction, opinion, habit. So easy for us to be pulled around by those. Beginning the day afresh. Once again, make the effort, take the trouble to look into the body, feeling the presence of the body, noticing our posture. Just because we spent a lot of time with it yesterday doesn't mean that that's done and finished with. Don't have to bother today. Once again, well, what's the body doing today? How does it feel right now? How is it being held right now? Once again, using the power of attention, mindfulness, to help the body, guide the body towards a relaxed and alert posture, spine reaching upwards at its natural, full, comfortable extension. All the joints of our limbs relaxed and at ease. The arms hanging loosely. The hip joints open. The stomach softened. Just making a habit of spending a few minutes feeling the presence of the body, helping it to be guided towards a balance of energy and relaxation. And then as we find a stability, a focus there, then consciously narrowing the attention to our own breathing. Letting the breath be the marker for this present moment. And whether we feel the breath most strongly at the the nostrils, or in the chest, or the abdomen, or just as a generalized feeling. It's not the crucial point. Wherever we feel the rhythm of the breath most strongly, just use that as your reference. But simply employing the qualities of the breath, its texture, its motion. We're just simply using that pattern of feeling as a way of marking this present moment. That's all. So wherever we feel it most clearly, most strongly, just let the attention rest right there. So that of all of the sphere of our awareness, right at the center, we're placing these simple array of feelings. The breath entering and leaving the body. That might be many other influences that we're experiencing. The sound of my voice, the birds singing outside, waves of feeling in the body, perhaps different moods and ideas, memories. So if we hold the breath here at the center of the sphere of our awareness, just let the other things that are arising, just figure them as being around the periphery, just appearing on the edges. They appear in our attention, so let them disappear. Some very insistent thought or feeling arises, demanding our attention, desperately wanting to be thought about or understood, calculated, planned, recollected. And rather than just trying to wipe it out and get rid of it, just politely say, later. Right now, maybe you are extremely important, utterly significant, but I'll get to you later. Gently leaving it aside. So begin to cultivate a real direct feeling for the breath, getting to know its characteristics. The difference between the in-breath and the out-breath, which feels warm, which feels cool. What kind of qualities do they bring? And noticing the space at the end of the out-breath, the pause, when the out-breath finishes, before the next in-breath begins. And pause at the end of the in-breath. Before the out-breath begins. Noticing those spaces, the turning points of the breath cycle. Allowing the body to breathe on its own. You don't have to. The body has its own intelligence, its own nature. I, the doer, the experiencer, the meditator, I don't have to do the breathing. Even when we're fast asleep, in a coma, the body breathes. And doing our best just to allow the body to follow its own rhythm. Letting the breaths shorten or lengthen, be deeper or shallower, just as the body needs. It makes its own adjustments. You don't have to. Now we might find that when the breath reaches the end of its cycle, say at the end of the out-breath, when it pauses, it's very easy for the mind to become distracted at that point. Maybe we're very focused on the feeling of the breath, but suddenly there isn't any. There's no object there. So the mind takes the opportunity to go off for a little romp. Even if we feel that we're quite focused on the breath, sometimes the mind is so restless for some activity, some kind of excursion, that it goes off to have write a quick poem, or make a little journey back to our home, or even go off to Peru, or back over to India and back again before the next cycle of the in-breath begins. The inner lawyer can make a good case for that. Well, still with the breath. Haven't really wandered. And got back in time for the next one to begin. This is a natural tendency, the restless mind seeking every outlet, like water under pressure. Any crack in the tank, any tiny fissure, it'll start to creep out, creep through. So it's particularly helpful just to sustain the attention, sustain the focus, even when the breath is not moving. When we get to the end of the cycle, the end of the in-breath, the end of the out-breath, to be consciously, carefully sustaining the attention right there. There's the space of our awareness, and there's a pause, and then the breath begins again. So just training the attention to rest within that spaciousness. And then when the object arises again, the in-breath comes, or the out-breath begins again, just follow it as before. So there's a sustaining of attention, following the transforming of feeling, in-breath and out-breath, and the spaces between. As we try to sustain concentration, there are kind of tools that we can use to help the mind not to get caught in distraction. Some of these are simple reflections on impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. Just as we were reciting and the chanting. As the mind tries to grab an idea or a feeling, a memory, a perception, becoming interested in that, caught up, carried away, going off on a little jaunt, just to be able to reflect for a moment. Oh, this is a fleeting, transient perception. It's just the song of the bird. It's a memory. It's a mental formation. It's an idea. It's impermanent, empty, selfless. The mind wrestling with an uncomfortable feeling or an obsessive thought. So just to be able to reflect, oh, this is association with the disliked. This is dukkha. Oh, right. And let it go. Release it. This way of learning to listen to what the mind produces, its habitual judgments, its distractions, the way it habitually tries to race away from the present moment, to be absorbed into past and future, feelings of like and dislike, opinions. This is what we need to familiarize ourselves with. And using this power of wise reflection, using these kind of tools to know that, to name that, and thereby let go of it. Listening to the voices of excitement and complaint, opinion. To know it's just another one of those voices, just another member of the inner committee making its statement, doing its thing. We can just do our best to recognize that, listen to it, and let go of it. These contemplations on impermanence, transiency, unsatisfactoriness, and so forth, these are simply tools that we have available to help unpick the attention from the vast array of perceptions and feelings, thoughts that the mind takes hold of, gets lost in, like different tools to unpick the birds from our socks, different ways of extracting the attention from its habitual loves and hates, its favorite haunts. Not that those objects are intrinsically bad or wrong, but just when we buy into them, we get born and we die with them, lost in them. And the more lost we are in the particular objects of past and future, self-concern, then naturally the more divorced we are from the reality of this moment. And this is where the Dhamma is. The Dhamma is this moment, apparent here and now, sanditiko, akaliko, timeless. It's here. It's not anywhere else. So the more the heart is attuned to this moment, the more that the goal is enabled to be realized. The goal of peace and inner balance, clarity. It's also important as we work with the mind that we're not just attacking the habits of distraction and love and hate with anicca, dukkha, anatta like they are kind of different weapons. Machine gun to shoot down every thought and feeling, perception. It's not a matter of wiping out, attacking thought and feeling, distraction, but just firmly and gently using these reflections with kindness, but persistence, strength. Not right now. Leaving them alone. Let them go to cessation on their own, rather than falling into the habit of aversion, negativity, wanting to wipe them out. Each experience of distraction is an opportunity that we have to cultivate kindness and patience. Really try not to make a fight, a war with your mind, trying to force it into submission. Even though that might be well-intentioned, the very forcefulness, the tyranny that we use to try and control thought and emotion can be the very thing that stirs up more difficulty, creates the causes for more tension and confusion. To use these qualities of wakefulness, wise reflection. So when we find the mind caught up in something, obsessing on a feeling in the body or an idea, bring the attention to that spot. Name it. Here's the mind, hating pain. Here's the mind, afraid of the future. Here's the mind, loving the past, regretting the past, whatever it might be. And then letting go, allowing it to go its own way. And as we come back to the present, just gently taking hold of the breath once again. So that a simple rhythm becomes like an anchor, the center point. The axis of our attention. What we always come back to. And also when we spend a lot of time, put a lot of attention into working with the mind, say we've intently been making the effort to stay with the breath for the last half hour, we feel like we're doing all the right things. It can also be helpful just to glance away from the breath for a few minutes now and then, just to notice what the posture is doing while we've been intently working with the breath, following it through its cycle, its beginnings and endings. What's the body doing now? Has our jaw clenched? Has our stomach tightened up, the solar plexus back into its usual knot? Is our nose a few inches from the floor? What's happening with the body? Where is it? So just take a few moments during each sitting, every 10 or 15 minutes, to come back to the posture. See what habits have reasserted themselves. What's the spine doing? What are the shoulders like? How are you holding the knees and the hip joints? Your face? What's here? And for myself, I find it's always a surprise. Like, wow. So tight around the eyes. The leg tightened up. The shoulders slumped. Look at that. Didn't even notice. So when we perceive any kind of imbalances or distortions, see that the posture is out of whack. It's bringing the attention to that area, that place where you feel the imbalance. And then just let the power of awareness, attention, be the aligning, the balancing agent. Don't make adjustments just with will and muscle. Bringing the attention to that spot, to that tightness in your hip joint, the bend in your back. Bringing attention to that spot, then let the body straighten on its own, relax on its own. Notice how strange it is to be in that state of clinging. With the full light of awareness brought upon it, we can't sustain that same kind of grip. It loosens. Body relaxes, opens. Naturally stretches. So just let those adjustments happen. Let that realignment of the posture take place, and then go back to the breath again.